Chad.
Thank you. On redistricting, you've spoken about what happened last time, and I know the special master is closer to Toronto and Cleveland and New York City, et cetera. Did
And
Democrat
Pittsburgh.
and Pittsburgh? I know, sounds like most of the National League Central is the exception. With redistricting, what did Democrats in New York fail to do properly last time? And specifically, what are they doing differently this time? Because redistricting could make the difference in a narrowly divided House, especially in one state, your home state.
All we want is fair maps to be drawn all across the country. We want a fair map in Alabama, a fair map in Louisiana, fair maps in North Carolina and Ohio and Wisconsin, certainly fair maps in New York. In the case of my home state, I think it's important that the Independent Redistricting Commission, which is bipartisan in nature, be given the opportunity to complete its work, to try to find common ground and present a congressional map to the legislature that gives every community, urban New York, suburban New York, rural New York, an opportunity to have its voices heard in deciding what the congressional delegation emerging from New York should look like. And so I think my only hope is that extreme MAGA Republicans who hijacked the process last year by going forum shopping in Steuben County, selecting a extreme partisan right-wing judge who then brought in an out-of-town special master who had no clue about communities of interest throughout New York State, and then they stuck us with this map. Thankfully, the appellate division in New York State has said the process that was short-circuited should resume so that the Independent Redistricting Commission that has Democratic appointees and Republican appointees should reconvene, hear from New Yorkers all across the state, and then present a fair map to be enacted by the legislature.
What did Democrats in New York do that led to that process? I mean, I've heard some people and members of your delegation I've spoken to said, "Look, we have 5 gavels. We had you as the caucus chair. We have Schumer, and none of that made a difference." They said that should have made a difference in getting these maps in favor of the Democrats, and that would have meant control of the House.
Well, in New York, unlike in other states, we don't have partisan gerrymandering running rampant. We have a process that was voted on by the people of New York State that should be followed. And that process involves an independent redistricting commission drawing the map. And unfortunately, the courts stepped in to that process, stripped away the ability of the Independent Redistricting Commission and ultimately the legislature to decide what a fair map should look like. And that's what left us with the situation that we now find ourselves in, with a map unfairly, unreasonably, unacceptably drawn by an out-of-town special master who has no clue about communities of interest. By the way, you just had the Supreme Court say that communities of color should have an opportunity to make a fair decision about who represents them in the United States Congress. That's the U.S. Supreme Court, a decision written by the conservative Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. This out-of-town special master in New York State, the maps that we currently are operating under, eroded and degraded the Black and Latino population in 5 different congressional districts. Degraded the Black population in the congressional district currently represented by Jamal Bowman. Degraded the Black population in the congressional district that I currently represent. Degraded the Black population in the congressional district represented by Yvette Clarke. Degraded the Black population in the congressional district currently represented by Greg Meeks. And decimated the Latino population, degraded it in the congressional district currently represented by Nydia Velasquez. How is that possible when the percentage of New Yorkers who come from communities of color in the last decade increased. It didn't decrease. And in 5 different congressional districts, this out-of-town special master drew a rubber stamped by a right-wing judge from Steuben County that actually went in the opposite direction than that suggested by the United States Supreme Court. So we're here because the Court of Appeals, in its prior iteration, made, in my view, an erroneous decision. I'm thankful that the process, which will be a fairer one, is back on track. Thanks.